Hello, everybody. Welcome to Inconvenient Intelligence. We are coming to you remote from Tampa, Florida, where we are the guests this week of Mosaic. Thank you to Casper and his team for their generous hospitality this week and for bringing the entire Mercyhurst student Mosaic team out of the CRAT down here to see Mosaic's operations and to see behind the scenes how the company works and what we're supporting out of the CRAT. As always, I want to thank our sponsors, Mercyhurst University, the School of Intelligence Studies, Computing and Global Politics, the Office and Department of Communications, and I want to thank everyone who works behind the scenes for the podcast from the CRAT. Now, we are honored and blessed today to have with us what I consider the most interesting man alive, Mr. Casper, and you'll be able to hear from him directly and form your own opinion on that. But today, Casper is joining us here in Tampa, and I'd love for Casper if you could introduce yourself, give us your background, and tell us a little bit about what you do at Mosaic.
All right. No, thanks, Brian. And yeah, just to add a little bit to what you said earlier, I thought it would be important for you guys to understand really how the Mosaic machine works, because it gives you context to when you support us with all the intelligence, information that you provide us. A little bit about myself. I'll try the 5-minute version. When I were in high school, I kind of wanted to be a rugby star, playing for as you can hear, I'm from South Africa originally, or I wanted to go into the military. I was really drawn to that. So long story short, I actually decided to join the French Foreign Legion. I was there a few years, grew up very...
No easy feat, by the way, listeners. If you don't know what the French Foreign Legion is, I would recommend you do a little OSINT research and see how tough that is.
Yeah, it was as a 17-year-old, getting into the Legion, they couldn't understand that I just wanted to be there and be a professional soldier. The latter is definitely the case. They are still very old school. You grow up very fast. There's no putting makeup on anything. It is pretty rough when you go there. Everything what you would expect. And they deploy all over. And it was a very interesting time. I went back to South Africa eventually. Started studying cybersecurity. 3 months into the studies, I thought, man, this is a stark difference to what I've been doing. So the adventure fire was still there.
Why cybersecurity? Why did you choose cybersecurity?
Yeah, I realized that the security world is moving toward, granted back then it was still in its infancy, but I realized the world is moving towards that, and I thought it would augment what in the physical security world, and that's why I was really drawn to that. Now I'm talking about like 2003, 2004 back then. I mean, in today's terms, that's a long time ago already. I then went back to the military, to the South African Special Forces. They had a program that was also in the early stages back then that they sort of copied from the British SAS, where they would look for civilians that have scarce skills that Special Forces needs. And it could be anything from foreign military service, languages, engineering, subject matter experts. And they would then take those individuals, give them all the necessary screening. They would place you on a shortened version of basic training. But the deal that you have then with Special Forces is when basic training ends, you will fall into the selection group with the regular military, all the hundreds of people that come for selection. No difference in that. It's just the way they get you into selection was different. And then if you fail selection, you become a civilian again. But if you pass selection, you can continue with a career in Special Forces. And I passed selection, and that's how I ended up with a career in Special Forces again.
And how old are you at this time in your life?
At this stage, I was around 22, 23.
Still a young man.
Yeah, still a young man. I never had time to do the university thing at that stage. So yeah, you can imagine, did everything that the word Special Forces stand for. Hearts and minds of communities, sharp end operations, all kinds of stuff all over Africa. In 2008, a lot of my colleagues started leaving Special Forces, and they went and worked in Iraq and Afghanistan. The commando CO that I had back then. He retired and he went to Afghanistan working for a US aid. And he then reached back out and say, hey, is there some of you guys want to come? It's a pretty interesting project looking after the US aid engineers. So I actually took unpaid leave in the military, went to Afghanistan. Um, it was, you're a soldier, so living rough or anything like that. That doesn't
So at this
matter.
point, you're a civilian
I
or a
was a
private contractor
private contractor
working in Afghanistan, not with the special
Yeah,
forces.
correct.
Got it.
Yeah, and so the pay was obviously pretty good. On my first R&R, I
Really
went
good.
back. I retired out of special forces, went back to Afghanistan. But the being a PMC is not the same as being a professional soldier. So again, just like when I was studying cybersecurity, it quickly became bored. I really, the camp life and sitting around and looking after people was,
It does wear on you.
yeah, it does wear on you. So I went actually to Mazar Sharif, the big NATO base that was there. There was all the NATO forces was in there. From the Germans, Finnish, Swedish, American, British. Um, so I actually walked around and see if I can join up again. I just want
Join back up, you mean in the military?
in the military. Yeah, I just wanted to. I'm in theater already, so I'm still highly trained, highly skilled. I'll just put on your uniform and I'll go
And how
kick
old are
down
you at
some
this
doors.
time?
I think I was 28, around
Okay.
there. Yeah, 28, around there. Yeah, so the British told me I did have an opportunity with the American military, but the problem was you have to have a green card already, and it was too long a process, and I'm already starting to get on the older side of the age for being in the military. The British military told me that I have to go back to London, but if I can find a sponsor of an active serving NCO, senior NCO, or an officer, I can join up. I looked on Facebook. I'm like, holy cow, there's a guy who was with me in high school that I know very well. Yeah, so I actually asked him, I said, hey man, I told him just a brief story, and he's like, yeah, sure, send me the form. He signed it. And guess what? I'm on my way to London doing all my stuff again. And I joined the Royal Marines, the British Royal Marines. During basic training, I had to redo basic training. And everyone told me that, hey man, you're a sucker for punishment, having to redo all these things. Because basic training is typically mess around, hardship stuff.
And you're not a young man.
No, I'm not a young man. I was so lucky in the Royal Marines because there was one guy that was older than me, so he got the nickname Granddad. In the Marines, they like nicknames, so he was the Granddad. Yeah, so the typical, anyone who knows basic training, you know what it's about. So the first day they gave us all the kit, and you have to prepare all that. And I'm like, yeah, this is pretty normal stuff. But all the young men that was there, it's like all the cool gadgets that they have, and the bayonets and knives and all that stuff. So anyway, the instructors came in, said, all right, there's a mock-up in the bungalows. Your bed space needs to look like this. Then you can go to bed and be ready for inspection the next day. I've been in this game a long time, made up my stuff, go to bed. Next morning, I woke up at 5 and I'm like, holy cow, everyone is still awake trying to get that bed space of theirs ready. And I'm like, oh man, it's going to be an interesting morning. Anyway, instructors came in, we were all on attention, man, and it is all that I expected. Beds flying, shoes over the walls, and it's just a mess around.
Full metal jacket.
Full metal jacket, man. And the sergeant came walking. I was in the back of the bungalow. It was these typical bungalows with the split wall. I was standing at the back. In the Royal Marines, they call a basic training group a troop. And we were 122 troop. And so he came around, he looked at my bed space, and he walked past, came back, he asked me, he says, hey, have you been here before? I said, no, I've never been here. He says, have you been in the British military before? I said, no, I've never been here. And so he called everyone, he said, troop, come here. And he says, I want you all to be like this. This is how your space needs to look like. And typically in the military, they call you on your last name. So Elof was mine. And they said, Elof, you are the team leader from now on. And I'm like, oh, man, this is not what I've hoped for.
But you had been in the British military before.
I haven't been in the British military before because I was in the South African military.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I mean,
But
concept's the same.
concept's the
Yeah.
same. Yep.
So yeah, that evening, the training team called me to their office. They obviously pulled my file now, and they looked at it. They said, "Hey," they said, "Man, stand easy, relax." And I said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Oh, why are you asking?" They said, "No, we really want to know why you're here." And they threw my file there, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess they looked with what it's about." And I said to them, "Look, do you want to hear the truth, or do you just want to hear a story?" And they said, "No, we really want to know why you are here." And I said to them, "Man, I I really love the military. It's in my blood. Um, and I come from a special forces background. But with that, you're never home. You're always on a mission somewhere. But I wanted to go back to the military, and I wanted to be sort of deployed 50% and in country 50% because I don't want to be gone all the time. You have to start thinking about where you want to settle and all that later stuff
Did
of
you have a
life.
family during this time?
Not yet.
Okay.
But they all couldn't understood why I wanted to do that. They just shook their head. The sergeant said, "Look, you probably have more experience than this entire training team here. You've been a contractor, a PMC, you've been in special forces, you've been in the Legion, and now you're here. It's crazy because these people here all want to have your life, and you coming back here." I said, "Yeah, I just wanted to have a little bit of adventure in a professional military outfit, and don't want to just be in
You still had the itch.
yeah, I don't want to be in some forgotten regiment somewhere, and so they just shook their head and they said, "Okay, man, that's crazy. We're not going to teach you anything here, but go back." And they were pretty favorable to me, I must say, because I didn't have all the mess around in basic training. When there was like when the troops screwed up and stuff, they sent me to go do something else, and so it was pretty decent basic training.
That's respect right there.
Yeah, I think so. I think they had the respect of the day, and it was pretty neat. The students, my group anyway, they typically would came back for questions and how do you do this? Could teach them some tricks, um, and for any of you trying to sign up for basic training, I'll teach you a quick trick. To get camo cream off your face and off your body is typically extremely difficult. But you know what? If you take baby oil, just take a little bit with you. If you put baby oil on there, it comes off just like that. So you just put that on, wipe it off with a wet wipe, and you're good. So that's
You heard that grooming tip right here.
There you go.
Inconvenient Intelligence.
Right. And then, so yeah, I transitioned from there. I actually met my wife in England. We got married. I then left the Marines, started working as a contractor for Fluor Construction in West Africa. I could still speak French. They needed a security person that could speak French. Back to Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. Then I worked for Samsung Engineering, and from there I worked for Mosaic, where I am today. I've been here 10 years. Yeah, it's been
And what do you do for Mosaic?
Yeah, so I'm the head of corporate security for Mosaic, their CSO. Do everything from travel management, projects, security automation, physical access, anything you can think of in the physical risk space. That falls under me and my team. We've built this program now over time. I think we have a very robust program. We've been rapidly transitioning to the IoT side of security. Everything from cyber to technology, augmenting what physical security does to, as you know, everyone now, we moving into the AI space, the cyber space, the automation through technology space. And we've been embracing that, coming up with some unique ideas in security. Yeah, and that's where we are today, here in Florida. And
they're a large operation.
Yeah, yeah, the company is one of those gigantic footprinted companies that sort of runs under the radar. You don't really know about them until you start looking. And yeah, if I can have my life over, I'd probably do it the same way. I don't have regrets.
No, it's an amazing journey you've been on, and I'm just glad to get to know you and hear about it, and for you to be able to share it with our listeners. But as you know, this show is called Inconvenient Intelligence.
Yeah.
So now it's time to get into a little bit of the part of the episode where we talk about Mosaic, talk about your experience with corporate security, as Mosaic is a global entity.
Yeah.
you're not just a regional focus or a focus in one or two areas. You've got operations globally. Can you talk to us a little bit about how challenging that can be from a risk and security perspective to be such a global entity with multiple operations in multiple different countries, and that's just some of the challenges you face, and maybe some of the solutions you can share with us?
Yeah, it is. It's a big challenge, and you need to stay in tune with global geopolitics, because things that happen in the Middle East, where we have operations, is different than what happens in Brazil or South America or North America or the Asia area. It's all a little different, but it all plays into effect. Um, so your intelligence network needs to be very, very good. Something that I learned and brought back from my military days is my global network that I have, a physical network, not an IoT network. Um, so when there's an event happening, it is very quickly for me to get information from the network that we have. Um, and that I've established over time. And it's a two-way street, obviously. You help them, they help you with information. So your intelligence network, to stay ahead of what's happening in those areas, are extremely important. Maintaining that network is also important because people move on, they move out of the region. So I spend a lot of time to maintain a good global network in the areas that we operate in. So that is very important. On your technology side, for your employees, it is very important to have a good travel program in place. And that's not just a security company or a duty of care provider that's going to help you when you're in need, but you need to be able to efficiently keep track of people's travel, because a large enterprise have hundreds of people traveling all the time. So what we did was we started a process where travelers need to get approval first through, we use a product called ServiceNow. It's just a workflow tool.
Sure.
So you can use any workflow tool, and that is then integrated. The workflow is integrated into all aspects of the company travel support program. So it will start where a traveler needs to raise a ticket. There's a few steps that we go through where they need to identify the risk they're going to travel to, put in security information, their personal information, and so on. They need to fill out the travel form. That initiates the ticket that goes to IT, the telecommunications department, security, finance, all that. And it also triggers the duty of care part, where we then establish, do we need security support or not for the person. And then we can keep track of them. Then we have an integrated app through our duty of care provider that would actually go on every traveler's phone.
So you have an app and you have a on-premise kind of data
Yeah,
uh, server that's dedicated to this as well.
yeah, correct. Yeah, and then so the app will have a few things on there. They can communicate with the 24/7 GSOC through the app. They also have a panic button on there that's integrated with the duty of care provider. Once they press the panic button, they actually geolocate their location, and then they can just go through the SOP. It works for many
Do your
things.
executives use this?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
got it.
And
So with this, I know you've got a really good duty of care. You've got a really good executive protection tracking,
yeah,
and being able to monitor them. And but from you mentioned geopolitical, right? So how do things geopolitically affect your ability to provide not just your typical risk and security and mitigating that risk to the executive protection and to the duty of care, but what about the company's
yeah,
operations as well? That's got to be a real challenge, especially in incidents like what's happening in Iran right now,
yeah.
where I'm assuming the President Trump didn't call you and consult with you and tell you he was about to conduct attacks in the Middle
Yeah.
East and how it would affect your operations. So now you're in a reactive mode. Do you have contingency planning? Do you guys do tabletop exercises? Do you have somebody that's your subject matter expert in helping you to put those plans in place or adapt and overcome
Yeah.
as it's transpiring?
Yeah, so important here is for you to have security professionals overseeing your region, because on a large operation, a one-man show just doesn't work. It's just too much to take care of. So we have a good regional security person in Saudi Arabia that works closely with me. Um, and it is important to have regular drills. For the Middle East specifically, We anticipate this situation because it's a powder cake all the time where something happens. Drone attacks always happens. The Israel Gaza situation, where our operation is based in Saudi Arabia, we often see missiles flying over and then it getting taken down. So actually, we've been training with our people on site for a long time. They have unannounced drills, they have announced drills where we would schedule this very often, at least one a month, and we will bring it forward to one a week, one every 2 weeks, depending on the situation in the region. Um,
So you're doing active
Active drills, yeah.
execution, basically wargaming
Yeah,
your contingency plans or the training that you're providing to your key personnel and employees.
yeah, we even went so far as to taking the entire operational staff that is there for us, going through one of our plans. You know, the most likely plan, we actually executed in real time so that they can actually walk through it and see how it works, what's going to go wrong. So it gives them then a feel to what to expect.
This sounds a lot like IPB, initial preparation of the battlefield,
Yeah,
and military drills and planning and how you do all of that. It seems like you brought your strong military background and everything you learned into the private sector to be able to teach a large corporation like Mosaic how to be able to efficiently do risk and security.
yeah, 100%. You know, and that is what you learn in the military. You know, to always have a plan for a plan for a plan. Um, and what that helps with is when the real situation occurs, like right now, our folks weren't even stressed. You know, they were all very calm. Whereas people are jumping on planes, evacuating, stopping business. We have not evacuated our people at all. We have just relocate them to safe areas where there is unlikely to be an event. And they have been there ever since, following their regular vacation schedule for R&R. We move them to safe airports. We are using our intelligence or inconvenient intelligence very actively because we don't let them overnight in a big city, for example, to catch a flight. We would actually drive them to when the flight is going to happen. And if the flight is not taking off, we will take them out. But we are judging on using radar systems, GPS jamming systems, that we have the
Amazing.
information. So you can obviously see once a government start jamming GPS signals in an area that, okay, we should probably not schedule our flight right now because there's a reason why they put the jamming system on. So you can use, although you don't get the actual information from like President Trump, you can see when the jamming goes on, and when the radar systems are actively tracking something. So then you know, okay, man, there's something going to happen. So don't go in this area or don't use the city right now. So that's how we've been moving our people around. And I think we've been very successful at that.
Minimizing impact to business
Yeah,
too, right?
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
not just risk and security, lessening the impact on the business operations, which in turn is necessarily hitting the bottom line or the revenue generation. And
yeah.
speaking of those operations, after seeing how large of an operation Mosaic is over the last couple of days, and seeing the significant supply chain that you guys have, how has the inconvenient intelligence right now is what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz,
Yeah.
right, and what's happening in the Gulf of Oman. How has this been impacting your supply chain risk and security, and what you can talk about with us on how you've been able to minimize the impact to that, or have you been able to?
Yeah, I think the key for a large company is to be able to switch your supply chain routes. Yeah, it's going to cost more because it takes longer now to get around, but to have the ability to switch it in time and not get your vessels affected is very important. For us on our product supply line, I don't think we had that big of an effect because we switched already when the war with the Israel-Gaza conflict started, and when the Ukraine war started, we already switched our supply routes. But I think what has a big impact is the cost of the materials we use, like sulfur prices and ammonia prices. The cost to get that into our facilities is higher. So that affects everything, because obviously you've seen here the food price, the food stability starts here at Mosaic for United States, in North America. So when our input cost goes up, our product cost will be higher. So that means the distribution cost is high. It's just a knock-on effect till it gets to the market. And so yeah, it's I think the commodities that we use has a bigger risk for us to the commodities we use to create product, is a bigger cost for us because we don't rely on our own supply chain. It's others' supply chains that we rely on. And that has had a big effect, I think, this year.
So what Casper's talking about, for those of you that don't know, is Mosaic is known as a mining company, but realistically, they're an agricultural fertilizer company.
Yeah.
And so the cost, the inconvenient intelligence for you listeners out there is what is affecting essentially the mining of the minerals that are needed to come up with the fertilizer to give to the farmers and to give to those that are growing agriculture out there in the food, eventually is coming back on you because of how it's affecting a company like this and their supply chain and increasing your costs. So therefore, what's happening with this supply chain, the more the supply chain is disrupted, the more costs go up for you, the more supply and demand drives up the price of things. You've got to look at these second and third order effects when you're in a position, not just doing risk and security, but looking at it from a impact to the overall product or the end product, right? Because you guys have a significant end product.
Yeah, 100%. And that is why, diversification is important. I know in our world and in our support roles, we always want that one throat to choke kind of per se, making contracts easier. But when it comes to supply chain, I think diversification is very key, so that you don't rely on just one source. You have multiple streams that you can rely on. But still, it's commodity driven. So even if a supplier have an easy open route, their price is going to be based on what the commodity market is charging. And so that's really why it's affecting us, in the short term time. We're really looking forward for the war with Iran to get to an end now.
I think we all are. So we've talked about risk and security to personnel, executive protection. We've talked about supply chain. We've talked about monitoring of geopolitical events. We've talked on the physical security. What else in your operations from a GSOC perspective, or as a risk and security personnel, as the CSO, what else is there that you guys or that you would recommend to up and coming GSOCs or to companies that are looking to move more towards using their intelligence capabilities and not just physical security?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for large multi-country operations, it's important to have a single pane of glass in your video system, your CCTV video system, which is used by operations as well, and your access control system. It's very common in the industry to see large enterprises have 4, 5, or 6 different systems all over because a lot of them grow by mergers and acquisitions. Security is usually the last area that they allocate money, so you just add that technology to your stack. So what happens then, you grow, and you have now 2 or 3 video systems, 4 access control systems, none talks to each other. It's always frustrating, difficult to do stuff. So that single pane of glass is very important. So there's a emerging technology that's been enabled by AI, and it's called PIAM, Physical Identity Access Management. So these are software companies that uses AI, but also their own software development. And what they do is they sit on top of all your access control technology. And they integrate with the rest of your business functions, like your people management tool, your accounting tool, your travel tool, all that stuff. It integrates flawlessly. They have an open back end, and it integrates with your access control system. So what they actually targeting is to try and make it cheaper for companies to get that single pane of glass. So the PIM system then acts as a translator. It sits on top, integrates to everything, creates that unification for you. So now you only need one badge that can go across the board for you, so you didn't have to rip and replace. So look into PIM systems if you have that problem. They are very versatile.
It has to reduce your overall cost
100%,
as well, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to have a person at each facility
Yeah,
that's badging everyone in. You don't have to have multiple badges.
yeah.
It's all one system. You
It's
don't have
all
like 5 different security systems, and if one is having a problem, you know you can't just fix it right there. You got to go out to wherever that server is, or wherever that
yeah,
access point is, or that
yeah. So
software provider.
what the PIM does is it actually makes your original access control system hybrid. It just sits in the background because the PIM controls everything now. And the nice thing is it automates everything for you, you know, from onboarding someone. We went from having hundreds of onboarding specialists and badging people and so on to just a handful because it automates everything.
So you're not using AI to take people's jobs. You're using AI to enhance their jobs, and you're still keeping the human in the loop.
Yeah, we're still keeping the human in the loop. That we just reskill them. Um, and
That's a
the
great word, reskilled them.
Yeah,
I
we
like that.
reskill them to do something different in the ecosystem. We rely on less guards because it's automated now. But for us on the back end, we just reskilled our people. Then the other thing is with the video system. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to unify your video system. However, if you have the problem of multiple systems, go to big companies. You know, I don't want to advertise now a company, but the larger companies are willing to convert your system for you for free. You just need to maintain a maintenance contract with them.
See, that's a great piece of information right there. The inconvenient intelligence is you may have some archaic, outdated systems and multiple systems, which could be costing you more money and costing you more headache. But the solution we just got right here with Casper is get these companies to come in and fix it for you
Yep.
for free, and then maintain the maintenance contract with
That's
them.
right. Yeah. So if you have a large operation, they are very willing to give you the system for free. You just have to sign a 5-year contract for maintenance or so, and you can test the market with other supply vendors as well. It's very market related, but you manage then to upscale your system. And why do you need that single pane of glass? Because you want to have one system that you can access all your video information globally, and it just makes it so much simpler, makes you more professional. If there's a global
Well,
incident
I
somewhere,
think it would make you more timely in
agile as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
more and a lot more timely in being able to provide information in near real time.
yeah, 100%. And
So
if
what
they,
about stovepiping, Casper? So I know with everything we've talked about, one of the things we see that a lot of GSOCs have an issue with is stovepiping within the company. And what I mean is individual divisions or departments working in just their own silo, and they're not sharing information or necessarily receiving information and sharing intelligence or information that could affect the whole company or could affect significantly the risk and security side of things.
yeah,
You face that with Mosaic, and how have you been able to, or at least try to knock some of those silos down?
yeah, I think a few years ago, let's say up to 5 years ago, that was still the case. But you know, security and cybersecurity are intersecting so much now. You need to be bound by the hip at the moment, and it will just continue like that. So we sort of created a security committee that's staffed by cyber and physical that we meet monthly, and we'll have some of the business leaders involved in there as well. That is the first step, to have senior security folks in a committee, because that shows to the downstream that you are supporting fusion. Fusion
Great
for
word there, fusion.
Yeah, fusion for cyber and physical is very important. You know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that kind of thing was in the safety and security environment where they sort of had the two groups together. But in today's world, safety is getting more independent from the security side completely, because cyber and physical security are becoming one thing. You know, most cyber attacks starts with a physical event, and then it flows into the cyber event. And it can be something as simple as a thumb drive, or someone that breaks into a data center, or whatever the case is. So the two need to be joined. So now, today, we work well together. Our SOC or GSOC is staffed by both. The cyber focus is more a virtual SOC, where the physical security folks obviously have to be present. But they have a play in it, and sharing information cross functions actually work well. We do joint things together when we have meetings with the federal counterparts like the FBI. We invite the cyber team. When they have events, they invite us. So I think we have figured out how to get things together, and our systems touch each other's areas. So as it stands today, I think we have a very good relationship. If we could almost be one big department,
So,
but yeah.
do you, outside of the what we call cyber threat hunting, which is mixing the intelligence analyst or the GSOC analyst with a network defender or a cybersecurity professional in the IT department, that's one silo there. Um, does your executive protection falls under your GSOC? Is that correct?
Yeah, it falls under on
Because
the
I know a
physical
lot of
security. Yeah.
companies they keep that separate. And then looking at some of your other departments as well, where is the competitive business intelligence being done in Mosaic, and does the GSOC help with the competitive business intelligence side, or is that a siloed kind of environment as well?
Yeah, I think it falls a little bit outside of our parameters here. Yeah, we would get into like I'll give you a good example. When Mosaic needs to apply for new permits,
Oh yeah,
um,
10-year process.
yeah, it is a long process. It's very difficult, especially in North America, and there is a lot of background noise that goes along with this. So that is where we would get pulled in to get the business intelligence for them. But when it comes to the financial and market related stuff, I think that falls more on a different side, even though we can support contributing information to it. But there is certain aspects that would be with the security department that we maintain, and help the business with it, but not the whole scope of that topic.
So as we're ending our time here, there is something I would like to talk about that I don't think people are aware of with Mosaic. And I am extremely impressed with the give back that Mosaic does after their operations are complete with their reclamation projects.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people clearly understand not only what it is, but the magnitude of what you're doing for this world. And you're actually, in my opinion, leaving an area better than you found it when you're done with the mining and you're done with your operations. You want to talk a little bit about the reclamation, what it is, and
Yeah.
how Mosaic's doing it, and maybe a couple of the big projects people don't attribute to Mosaic that maybe they
Yeah.
should?
Yeah, that is the interesting point you make, and the absolute truth. People is sometimes thinking of a mining company as leaving rough land and destroyed nature, but actually, what Mosaic does is they do return the land that they've mined better to what it was found. They actually reintroduce streams. They would do surveys before the
You're
mining
protecting
start.
wildlife.
Yeah, we protect the wildlife.
Right.
We would reintroduce wildlife that is not in the area anymore. And then what they do is they would sell it back to the public. And you would get pristine land that have got new trees planted on them, new streams, perfect agriculture land or nature conservation land back. You can go buy it then from
And we're not
Mosaic.
talking a small park with some swing sets in it. We're talking
Hundreds of
large,
acres, yeah.
large, naturally habitated, in land.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, what Mosaic did was they took one of their areas and they created a 5-star resort on it just to show the world what can be done with this kind of land. And it's called Stream Song. You can go look it up. Nice golf course, beautiful hotel, lots of activities there, open to the public. And that was done on rough mining land, just to show people what can be done and how you can integrate actually mining into the public space. And then the company actually spent a significant amount of time to return mining land back to its original uh, look, and better to what it was before. Because Mosaic is excellent stewards of the environment, and they do not believe in destroying any part of the environment. It goes back to better to what they found it.
And look, I can tell you from firsthand experience, my crew here producing the podcast can tell you we've spent the last 3 days going out and seeing this for ourselves. And I've got to tell you, it is amazing. You're probably at some point when you're in Florida standing on land somewhere, enjoying the wildlife, enjoying nature. And Mosaic had an operation and did mining there and did the reclamation project that you're now standing there. You would never know. And so to see everything we've seen while we've been here, I can tell you they're not destroying the environment. And I can tell you that they're returning it better than they found it. They're not talk, they're actually action on this. So I would tell my listeners, if you're down in Florida, if you're in the Tampa area and you get a chance, go out and take a look around where some of the operations our Mosaic has. Go, and odds are you're going to find one of their reclamation projects down here. Take your family and enjoy it, because it is an amazing, amazing thing to see. And so, Casper, as we wrap up the podcast here, because you've been an amazing guest, and like I said, to me, you're one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And your stories, we've just touched the surface with. Believe me, you ever get a chance to talk to this man over a beer, he's done some things. So what would you like to leave our general audience with about you, about Mosaic, about risk and security that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I think I have one piece that I try and teach everyone that I help or that I work with, even my own team, and it's a phrase we use in special forces a lot. It's called centralized decentralization. I think that is
Ooh, I like that.
the actually there's two parts to this. There's also another part that I call inspect what you expect. If you do these two things in your university, your operations, everywhere you go, you will be very successful. Centralized decentralization is you want to have a centralized way of doing things or a procedure or a principle, but you want to decentralize how people execute that. So for example, if you have a task that you want to give your staff or that you want done, you don't have to be a micromanager telling them, showing them, and being on their shoulder all the time on how they needs to do that. You want the product, give it to them, let them do it. And then here's the other part that ties to that. Inspect what you expect. If it is an important task, make sure you just follow along how they are doing it, and then course correct them if you see that they are straying widely from what you want. It is typically not a good idea to sit on people's shoulders, because it's not nice working like that. But if you just course correct, say for example a university assignment, you gave them an assignment, you have a centralized topic, you decentralize how they need to do their assignment, but every now and then you check their work and just make sure that they are on track and not stray off too far. You apply that science to your work, your job, your operation, your project, you'll be extremely successful.
Thank you. Great words of wisdom to end this podcast with. And I can't thank you enough for being a guest for us. I can't thank you enough for the great partnership that we have with Mosaic, and the opportunities you give our students in the Center for Intelligence Research and Analysis and Training, the CRAT, and being able to be a part of your GSOC. Thank you for this week and bringing the students down and showing them your operations. And I can't, from a personal level, as a friend, I really am enjoying having you as a guest on our podcast.
No,
I
you're
can't
welcome.
thank you enough, Casper.
I can't wait for volume 2.
Oh, yeah. I think this is probably going to be an annual event for us and an annual podcast. And to all our viewers out there, thank you for taking the time, and our listeners to listen to this. I hope you learned something. As always, on the Inconvenient Intelligence, we're trying to provide you with that inconvenient intelligence from both sides, give you some nuggets of information to make you smarter around the water cooler, or to just educate yourself on a part of the intelligence community you may not be aware of. Hopefully you got some great tips from our guests today. I'd like to thank, as well for this week, I'd like to thank Tony, I'd like to thank Hamp, and I'd like to thank Andrew for helping us out this week and showing us everything. And as always, I want to thank my great cast here at the podcast. KT Nelson, producer. We've got Dylan Stritzinger, who's not with us, but he is our communications director. And then we have Connor Clark, our intern, fact checker, an all-around great young man and the future of this podcast. So I hope you all enjoyed it. This is us signing off on Inconvenient Intelligence. I've been your host, Brian, and we'll see you guys when we get back up into Erie for the next podcast. We're out here from Tampa. Thank you.